This is the new Porsche Taycan, and it is one of the best electric cars that you can buy in the market today. You see, every time you buy a Porsche, you're not only buying a car, but you're buying nearly 100 years of engineering know-how. Now, Porsche has been in motorsport for almost as long as it has been around. And every time it goes racing, it does really well. You can find a Porsche in nearly every segment of motorsports series, particularly the World Endurance Championship, from which you get hybrid and electric technology that has been trickled down into the Taycan. So, the Taycan has a little bit of technology from motorsports. Now, on the other side of the spectrum lies the Porsche 911. That too has multiple years, decades and decades of motorsport heritage. And I am about to go on a really long trip to go and drive one of the best 911s that you can buy today. Beautiful sound, isn't it? So I've traveled about 17 to 18 hours to be here in Valencia, Spain, particularly the circuit Ricardo Tormo, a MotoGP and former Formula One circuit, to drive a very special car. Guys, in the opening of this video, I spoke about heritage. And there's one thing that you cannot take away from heritage car makers is their history. This is the Porsche GT3. Behind me is the GT3 996.1, the car that started it all way back in 1999, has a link between Porsche's motorsport activities to its road-going cars. Now this, the 996.2, the 997 were essentially the link between Porsche's race cars and cars that you could buy to drive on the road. So if you wanted to feel like a race car driver, if you wanted a race car for the road, the GT3 is the car that you bought, because these cars, with its naturally aspirated engine, the raw thrill, the analog experience, are why I'm here in Spain. Guys, I'm here to drive, hopefully buy one day, the 992.2 Porsche's latest generation GT3. Let's go take a drive. However, before we start driving, let's just take a closer look at the new Porsche GT3. So on my left, we have the GT3 with a fixed wing, and on my right, we have my personal favorite, the GT3 Touring, available for the first time from the get-go. So this is available. You go to a Porsche dealer, you can actually choose right away whether you want a fixed wing or whether you want a more understated GT3. But what's new? So with the new GT3, you get a more aerodynamic enhancements. So stuff like this air duct over here is designed to actually push air into the front bodywork. This is designed to cool the front radiator as well as cool the brakes, and then that air exits through the front luggage compartment, and this works to reduce overall lift at the front axle of the car, basically sticking the car down to the road. The suspension components of the car, some of it have also been contributed by the GT3 RS, and what this basically means is that the car sticks closer to the ground. So at speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour, you get 17 to 18 kilograms of downforce. and at top speed of over 300 kilometers per hour, the suspension components contribute about 40 kilograms of downforce. That is just phenomenal. So with the GT3 Touring, you basically get that same exciting performance, but without that rear wing. So when you're younger, you want a rear wing, you want it to look and feel like a sports car. But when you get older, you still want it to feel like a sports car, but perhaps you don't want it to look like a sports car. You want a more gentlemanly appearance, and that's what you get with the GT3 Touring. This is basically the car that you get when you want to go places with your family, but then at the same time you want to be able to engage in that GT3 feel. So basically in here you get that exact same feeling which you get with the GT3 with the fixed wing, except it looks a lot more sleeker, to my eyes at least. Having said that though, there is still a spoiler tucked away neatly over here, which extends at 120 kilometers per hour. And this tiny ducktail that you see over here, this is new and is designed to sort of contribute to the overall design of the GT3 Touring. But I can't help wonder if this would look better in carbon fiber perhaps? So alright guys, so we are starting our driving experience for the new GT3 on track, and we are starting off with the fixed wing version, and later on the touring version will take it off to on the road, which is, according to Porsche, the natural habitats of such cars. So the fixed wing version, as far as the interior is concerned, is almost roughly just about the same. Now it depends on which package that you opt for. If you go for the Weissach package, which is what I'm sitting in, you get a lot of special features. A lot of carbon fiber everything. This carbon fiber roll cage over here, which is extremely light yet stiff, and it's basically, as what I've said earlier, this package allows you to fully customize your GT3. Now, as far as the new GT3 is concerned, the interior updates, are mostly limited to the digital screens up ahead of me. Now, Porsche has been saying that one of the key criticisms that it received was the criticism about the centrally mounted RPM dial. Now, they wanted, the purists always wanted the analog meter panel. This is obviously a digital meter panel. It has been for a while, but I kind of understand where Porsche is coming from. It's still very traditional in the sense that the RPM dial is still located in the center, and it's flanked by all your other information such as your speed, your battery capacity, and all of your other information such as tire pressure monitoring system and such. But the cool thing about the new GT3 is that you get to customize the centrally mounted RPM dial. Now, in traditional race cars, the RPM dial, the red line was always right at the top. Now though, in newer cars, the red line is on the right hand side of the dial. However, because it's digital, you get to customize it just by turning this key over here, and you get to customize it for a more traditional readout. Just taking a photo. So anyway guys, I'm really excited to finally be able to drive the new GT3. This is a car that I lust over, and in my books, I don't even want a GT3 RS. I just want a GT3. It's just amazing. So this, for me, is a dream come true. And I'm gonna shut up for a while and just immerse myself in this driving experience.
And as you know, this is just the first driving impressions. So now we always aim first to get there in the groove, later we can go out one by one, that you can moderate while driving dynamically. And another rotation, please. So the line that you guys are driving looks very good. Just keep it exactly like that.
For many, the Porsche GT3 is the ultimate driving machine. It represents a link between the old analog era and our modern digital era. In many ways, that is true. The naturally aspirated 4-litre flat-six engine produces 510 PS at a screaming 9,000 RPM, and that is an integral character of the GT3. While most supercar makers have transitioned to forced induction or hybrids, the GT3 remains pure. It is also still available as a manual, and to purists, that means the GT3 remains one of the best driving machines. With the 992.2, Porsche faced ever stringent emissions regulations, which threatened to hurt the character and power output of the car's engine. So the fact that Porsche has managed to produce the same power output as before while meeting emissions regulations is nothing short of an engineering marvel. With better aero and a screaming engine, the new GT3 has retained its motorsport-derived driving character, yet sticks to the road better than ever.
The green card that just passed us is Jürgen Bergmeister, so we don't have to be ashamed of that. Great speed.
So as you can see, this is just such a pure driving experience. It's such an analog driving experience as well, from the sense that the sound of the engine, the way the car communicates with you, the directness and the response of the steering wheel, this is still a very pure driving experience. Some of you more purists will say that it does not represent a pure driving experience in the traditional sense. Well, guess what? There's still a manual transmission available for the GT3. Of course, that just means that your entire gear shifts are going to be slower despite the fact that the manual transmission, that gearbox, is actually lighter than the PDK transmission. If you want a unadulterated driving experience, perhaps the manual gearbox is the choice for you. But from what I'm experiencing over here when it comes to track driving, the PDK is just such an amazing driving experience. It gives you an amazing driving experience. So what do I think about the new GT3? The directness of this steering rack is just astonishing. And that anti-dive under heavy braking, you don't even notice the car diving. It's just so pure. And I took a passenger ride in the GT3 RS just now. When you ride the curbs and such, you actually feel it. But not in here, not in this GT3, which is quite surprising. And that just means that if you actually want to use this car as your daily, you very well could. Wow, this is just such a pure experience, and just listening to this powertrain rev up to 9,000 RPM is just such a sensory onslaught. Wow, just wow. Now we're going to continue this, but I'm going to jump into the car without the Weissach package. So I don't think it's going to come with the roll cage. Let me just see. So that should, well, give me a different driving experience. I'll see how it feels, because a roll cage always stiffens the car. Let's go see. For the first time ever, the GT3 is now available with the Weissach package. This was previously only available for the GT3 RS and not the GT3. With a nearly unlimited options list, the Weissach package allows owners to specify how they want their Porsche to look and feel like, with the only limitation being the depth of their pockets. The white GT3 you saw earlier came with the Weissach package, and that included a roll cage made of carbon fiber and a lot more. But the red GT3 you see here does not come with it. This is the base car without the options, and even then it is still something quite magnificent. So in the car without the Weissach package now, as you can see, there's no roll cage at the back. And track mode, of course. Woohoo! You know, a lot of cars make over 510 PS, which is what the GT3 makes. But none of them sound this good. 9,000 RPM, yo! It's just such an amazing experience, and it's undeniable that when it comes to wanting a car that gives you the ultimate experience, the GT3, there's no fighting it. Whoa. Amount of downforce there is. You can make this car do things that other cars simply cannot match. Now we are at the straight. Just listen to this. Just listen to this. into a corner, and this car does not threaten to break grip. It's just fantastic how it does that. Out into a corner. Straight line. Oh my god. So anyway, when it comes to driving experience, there's no beating the GT3. Of course, there's the GT3 RS. Of course, there's the GT2 RS. But those are very, very different machines. The GT3, well, this is a car that you can buy for your day-to-day use. You want a race car to drive to the office. And yet at the same time you want to have fun, you do want to do track days. This is a car that you can drive on a daily basis. It's just fantastic what the GT3 can do. And now it's been further improved, it's been further refined, and it's just unreal. I gotta say that it's just unreal. For a car that to produce 510 PS at 9,000 RPM, this is what the world needs. This is exactly what the world needs. In a time when we are just given nothing but EVs, the whole world is talking about electric cars and all, and then Porsche goes and updates the GT3. When there was this entire fiasco about Porsche adopting forced induction for the GT3, and then Porsche was silent throughout the entire episode, right? Not only forced induction, but even hybrid technology for the GT3. Porsche was just silent. And then they just introduced this, the 992.2. After this, I'm going to go drive the Touring, and that's going to happen on the road, and that's probably going to be an entirely different experience. I'm looking forward to that. Let's go. So now it's time to hit the road with the 911 GT3 Touring. Let me show you. So this is the GT3 Touring, and a beautiful, beautiful green color. This is sort of like a jade green color, and obviously without a fixed wing at the back. I kind of like this version, to be honest. Suits my style, more understated, not so loud, and like the blacked out Porsche. These are of course all optional, so I'm not sure which package this is. This could be the lightweight package or something, because if I'm not mistaken, the GT3 Touring does not come with a Weissach package. And the driving experience though should be the same, because the engine is the same, outputs, everything are the same, and the only thing that is different is the amount of downforce that it creates because of the lack of a rear wing. How does it drive? Let's go find out.
The Touring package has been available for a while, but for the first time it is available right from launch, which means you can visit your closest dealership and immediately buy one. The Touring is a proper legend and can trace its roots back to 1973 to the 911 Carrera RS 2.7, which is the first Porsche to come with the Touring designation. The Touring represents a more gentlemanly approach to what we call a race car for the road. With the omission of the wing, the classic silhouette of the 911 shines through. And for me, this is the best iteration of the 911 bar the ST. But there's still a wing at the back, except that it extends at speed to stabilize the car and to aid cooling. Of course, it does not create as much downforce as the fixed wing, but the aerodynamics around the front and underneath the car means that it still sticks to the road like never before. And for the first time, the Touring Pack now comes with rear seats, though that is a paid option.
So the GT3 fixed wing version is obviously a lot of fun on track, and you would expect it to be because the GT3 is all about motorsport heritage. Now the Touring model it has all of that heritage stuff, that racing DNA, that aggression that you've come to expect out of this 4-litre 6-cylinder boxer engine. However, it is in a very unassuming package, because when you first look at the Touring model, you would not expect it to be anything special. There's nothing about it that screams GT3. But then when you start to look closer, you start to notice the wheels, the single lug wheel, and then you start, perhaps depending on the option chosen by the owner, you start to perhaps notice a little bit of carbon fiber here and there. But this is a car that as soon as you get behind the wheel and find the right kind of roads, which like we are on right now here in Valencia, this is where it truly starts to come alive. Because ultimately, despite it not having a fixed wing at the back, but underneath, it's still the same car. The powertrain's the same, the brakes, the aerodynamics. Well, talking about the aerodynamics, it probably does not create as much downforce as the fixed wing version. But when it comes to pure unadulterated driving pleasure, it still is a lot of fun. So it creates its 510 PS at 9,000 RPM. And just as what you heard earlier with the fixed wing version back at the track, it still sounds really, really good as well. Now, but the Touring is a car that you would probably expect to drive on a daily basis. And then, the one thing that really matters for a car that you want to drive daily is comfort. And it delivers decently. Well, of course, this is a proper purebred sports car, so it's not exactly Bentley-like comfortable. You do pick up on all the little dips and ruts. The suspension is still on the stiffer side of things. And then when it comes to noise insulation, you still hear the Pilot Cup Sport 2 tires kicking up all the little pebbles and such. So you hear a lot of that back in the cabin. But then again, when the roads open up, that's where you truly, truly get to immerse in the GT3 experience. Because ultimately, you buy a GT3 not to cocoon yourself in comfort. You buy a GT3 to enjoy some driving pleasure. And unfortunately, I'm stuck behind a bus and a truck right now. But as soon as the roads open up, I want to find that 9,000 RPM red line. Anyway, as we wait for that, we also have a lot of other things over here to play with as well. Because just like the fixed wing version, you also get 3 driving modes: normal, sport, and track. And the track version is the ultimate hint of what this car is meant to do, because this is a proper gentleman's racer's car. You can track it on weekends and then pack up and head to the office on Monday yet again. So the newer version of the 992.2 is all about evolution. So as I was saying earlier, a lot of the criticism that was leveled at Porsche with the 992.2 focused on the digital meter panel, because in the 991.1 you still had an analog centrally mounted RPM dial. All Porsches from day one have always had an analog centrally mounted RPM dial. This 992.2 is the first Porsche to have the first 911 Porsche to have a digital centrally mounted RPM dial. But earlier during the press conference, the guys from Porsche were explaining that it's better to have it this way because at night you get to see it clearly, and that's when it truly matters. And as I was explaining earlier on in this video, with this digital RPM meter, you can sort of change the interface of it, because when you put it in track mode, the red line switches from the extreme right to just at the top of the dial, just as they were with traditional race cars as well. So one of the key factors that contributes to its touring-like usability and practicality is a system that lifts the front end. Now, Porsche didn't speak widely about this during the press conference earlier. So what I experienced just now was when we went through a very small Spanish town earlier, there are going to be multiple speed breakers along the way. So it just raised the front end automatically. So I'm guessing there's some radar or some camera, front-mounted camera, that contributes to this, which just makes it incredibly practical to live with on a day-to-day basis. Now the roads have opened up, and this is where we can sort of just turn this dial that's located just on the steering wheel, put it in sport. Who am I kidding? Let's put it in track. And now, just with a very slight twitch of your right foot, and the car just opens up. So we are still on public roads, around roads that I am not very familiar with, driving on the wrong side of the road. So I'm not really very keen about pushing it very hard. But it's just such an amazing powertrain. This is a car that's obviously meant to be enjoyed on track. But if the roads allow it to, you can just immerse yourself in the entire GT3 experience. And this is where the suspension gets stiffer as well, because we are being thrown around right now. It's not GT3 RS kind of stiff. Now the dampers are not as stiff as the ones on the RS, and neither are the bushings. So in terms of comfort, I dare say that it's still at an acceptable level. So anyway, this is what cars are all about. The 911 GT3 represents an era that I think the world is fast forgetting. We are always talking about electric cars. We are always talking about renewable energy sources. We are always talking about such things. If you've never driven a GT3, you will never understand the joy of pure motoring. Naturally aspirated engines, 9,000 RPM red line. It's just the pure joy of driving, and that is what the GT3 represents. And I dare say now, in the touring package, it has transcended beyond life on track only. I just couldn't help it. And this is what the GT3 allows you to do. This sound, this visceral, very unadulterated, pure sound is just something that I believe every car fan or everybody needs to experience at least once in their life, because only then you will understand what it means to ensure that cars like the GT3 always have a place in the motoring world. manual version, and it's just such a different experience. Of course, I've driven and owned plenty of manuals in my life, but very rarely do I have to actually shift using my right hand. I'm a Malaysian after all. Technically, I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, and my brain needs a couple of minutes to do some rewiring or reformatting of sorts. But how does a car feel, you might ask? I'm kind of glad that Porsche still creates manual transmissions, because it just highlights the natural character of the Porsche 911, particularly the GT3. And earlier, I had gone on a couple of hot laps with Jan Burgmaster, Porsche, a very successful German Porsche driver, and that was in a manual 911 GT3 with a fixed wing. And my God, I'll never be able to drive like him. But anyway, that highlighted what the car is capable of doing. But right now, in the touring version, it's just a very different driving experience than the PDK. The PDK was already fabulous because it just has lightning quick shifts, and it has one extra gear ratio. So the PDK is a 7-speed transmission. This is a 6-speed. So if you drive it in normal mode, you will have to do the heel and toe, the throttle blips and all by yourself. But right now I'm in sport, and I can feel like a proper driving hero. Because if I do this, the car blip throttle by itself for me. And if I drop from 5th to 4th, it sounds amazing. I can do shit like this. Oh my God. Wow. This is some very illegal speeds, man. I think I might better just slow down because they might just chuck me out of the country tonight. Anyway, how does it feel? Well, besides the fact that it feels like I'm brushing my teeth with my left hand, it just highlights the entire character of the GT3. I mean, this is just going back to basics, right? With manual transmission, sports cars and such. Would I actually buy a manual transmission GT3 Touring? I think so, because if I just wanted to indulge in the entire driving experience, the ratios of this, the throw of the shifter is just so short, so precise, that it's just a very nice experience. And you know what they say, save the manuals, right? So in that sense, you still get a ridiculously powerful, naturally aspirated transmission and naturally aspirated powertrain, excuse me. And just because it's a manual transmission, it doesn't take away that fact. Neither does it try to, overcompensate with giving you more power or, reducing power and such. It's just a GT3 with a manual transmission. Go and actually try to experience it, because it just opens up an entirely different world. So that's it, friends. That is why car makers like Porsche are so unique, because they're able to operate on such a wide spectrum. On one side, you have really nice electric cars like the Taycan, and then on the other side of the spectrum, you have cars like the new Porsche GT3. Now, the GT3 is not only a sensory onslaught, but now because it comes with the touring pack, you can also use it on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't like that massive big wing because it's so, some call it obnoxious, you can have it in an understated style as well. And when it comes to driving, as I said earlier, it's just such a visceral driving experience. Imagine, as you have heard it just now, imagine it screaming at 9,000 RPM. And that is why cars like the 911 GT3 and even the 911 GT3 RS should continue to exist, because they remind us of how cars once were. Analog, pure, and just such an amazing driving experience. And I'm kind of glad that we still get that with the new GT3 as well as the new 911 GT3 Touring. As usual, guys, thank you for watching. Do consider subscribing.